Hi, I'm Monica Cesarato, a food and travel blogger in Venice. Welcome to Venice Meets, a series of live chats from Instagram every day at 6 p.m. CET. Today I will be talking to Jill Kirby, one of Ireland's best-known finance journalists, broadcaster and author.
Hello! How are you?
I'm very well. You've no idea how amazing it is that I am on this technology. I described myself as what was it? Techostraphic.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Whatever, a catastrophe, a textastrophe, or whatever it is. So anyway, I'm very.
Yes, and I can see we both went and passed through the mirror and put some makeup on compared to this morning when we tried, and a lot of coffee now. How are you, Jill?
I'm fine. I mean, it's a beautiful sunny day in Dublin. The weather is getting better, which is
okay.
You were here. The cook in Venice came to Dublin a year ago.
It was April, actually. It was April, about 10 days before this. So about 8th or 9th of April it was, wasn't it?
About a week ago earlier, you know, and not as nice weather then, but it was a pleasure to have you because I've been on so many of your food tours in Venice. So I had a chance to take you to some of our favorite places, and it was a great.
I loved it. Oh my God, I'm in love with Ireland. I'm in love with Dublin. I'm in love with the food of Ireland. Oh my God, I don't think I've eaten so much like the 3 days I was there.
Good. And isn't that a bit of a problem at the moment for everybody? I have a home office, and I've been accustomed to working from home anyway for many years. But I'll tell you what, there's actually a shortage of flour in Dublin now. Everybody is baking and making their own food.
I was telling yesterday to Vicky that about 3 weeks, the last time I went out, so no, this time 3 weeks ago, because I think, I didn't go out for about three weeks or something like that. I actually, when I went to the shop, I found a block of yeast of half a kilo. And I looked at it and I thought, that's a bit too much. But then I thought, oh, it freezes anyway, so I thought I better get it. So I got it. Yesterday, Vicky said to me, oh, maybe you should sell it. In doses, yeah, like gold.
Well, I think I'm predicting a side market in people who have more flour but not enough pasta. Or if there's going to be a shortage of potatoes, that's when you'll really hear that things have gone a little crazy here in Ireland.
Yes. Okay. Well, let's clear something. You're not actually Irish, but you are. Because how long have you been living in Dublin?
For 40 years. I came here 40 years this coming October. About a year after I graduated from college back in Montreal. And my family, going back many generations, though, are Irish on both sides of the family. But they had started leaving Ireland at the time of the Great Famine. And then I had a chance to do a little bit of family research because we had a reunion many years ago. And I was working for the Irish Times at the time. And a very kind person, I told her a bit of a fib that I was going to write about my family because I am the only Kirby with the spelling of K-E-R-B-Y still here in Ireland. The entire family either emigrated or died out by the late 1870s. So anyway, that was a chance to explore a little bit of the family background. But I am Irish, very much Irish Canadian. And
maybe you should write that book after all.
Yes, I perhaps could. You know, Ireland's...
Could. Should. You should.
Ireland has changed a great deal since I've come here. It's a multinational society now. We have people from 100 nations and more living in Ireland, becoming Irish. Their children are being born, of course, Irish, and will identify as Irish people, no matter where their family originally came from. And I think that's terrific. It's certainly been one of the great improvements, the great developments in Ireland, and the cuisine is a great example of that, you know.
Yeah, and I was very surprised because, you know, I lived in England many years and I knew a lot of Irish people, but I was used to a couple of Irish dishes. I was so surprised of the variety and how good they taste. I was expecting to find a lot of stuff similar to the UK, and yes, there are. But there's a lot of real original Irish food that I would have thought, and it tastes really good.
Yeah, I think you know, Venice is very like that too. It's the ingredients that count, the freshness and the close proximity to the land in our case, and to the sea, because we have great fish here. And I think that's what Irish chefs have discovered in the last at least 20, 30 years. Is, you know, we've always had brilliant, simple, wonderful, wholesome ingredients. How they're cooked is what's really improved. The style of cuisine has improved, but the ingredients were always there and they were fresh. And I think, you know, my biggest surprise when you came is that I know the cook in Venice loves her wine and is a trained sommelier and everything else, but you know that you absolutely love cider.
Oh, God. And what a discovery, the Irish cider. Sorry, guys, for the British people listening out there, but it tastes so much better. I'm sorry. It is.
And I know you brought craft beer home for your sons.
Oh, they loved it. They loved it. Oh, yeah. They loved it. They loved it.
It's not just Guinness and whiskey anymore.
No. No. And that was interesting as well, the nightlife and a lot the food offered as in restaurants as well. And it wasn't just ethnic restaurants. It was real
Irish.
It was Irish, but without being traditional. I don't know, very contemporary. I loved it. I loved it. One thing I want to know about, how did your love for Venice, where did it come from? How was it born?
Well, I had, I mean, I've always loved Italy and used to go to Rome at least twice a year for at least 10, 15 years before I started going to Venice. And the reason for that is, and I'm not virtue signaling here, but I had read a great deal about Venice. I'd wanted all my life to go to Venice, but I also knew about the problems in Venice and the mass tourism that had really started in the 70s, got worse in the 80s and the 90s. And by the 2000s, I know that people were just overwhelmed, the Venetians themselves. So I kind of kept postponing a trip until my sister, who lives in Ottawa, and we try to meet once a year in Italy. And she said to me, I'm not going back to Rome or to Florence with you or other places. I want to go to Venice. And I said, all right, we'll go to Venice. And at the same time, I think this was about 2014, Monica, the wonderful Joanne Lochtov, who's a great friend of yours. I've never met her, but we're Twitter friends. And she produced this fabulous Dream of Venice series of photographic books about Venice. And I first one, and absolutely just, that was it. I was smitten. And since then, I've been coming back every year. And for the last 4 or 5 years, I've had the great privilege of coming back for a month. And I stay a month now, and I've met such wonderful people, and I know I'm still adding my footprint, but I try to come off season. I certainly like to spend money with the wonderful artisans and the cafes and the places that you've introduced me to, and other people. And you know, I think this pandemic's going to be very interesting for Venice. It's a tragedy what's happened so soon after the great flood in November, and I was there for the month of December this year. But I think it is.
And you remember how already it was feeling, it was a weird atmosphere. It was a really weird atmosphere. It was, eerie. Yeah, eerie. It was, I don't know, maybe we knew something was coming. I don't know, but it wasn't just the Acqua Alta. There was something already in the air.
Oh, and I think,
as a day, you know, forgive my pun of being the air, but
many conversations over the past years with friends, and also because I'm a journalist, I'm curious, and I've written about it, and I've done some broadcasting about my trips to Venice as well. And there has been a sense of just utter frustration that they've been unable to really, Venetians, you know, to be able to somehow get their city back. And I think maybe that undercurrent that you're talking about, which I certainly felt in December as well. But the great pandemic means, I mean, it's a funny silver lining, isn't it? But all of my Venetian friends, including you, have said, to see our city again like this, I mean, to actually be able...
I haven't seen it yet, but yes, it is. It is.
But many of the people you've interviewed are saying we're not allowed out very much, but my God, when we are out, to see our beautiful city, empty, but but to see the fine detail that we've been missing, and the clearness of the Grand Canal, the fish in it, you know, to be able to see that, things that their generation has never seen.
Yeah, and what's interesting, I think, is empty without being empty, as in the streets are empty. But as somebody pointed out the other day, the houses are full of people.
Yes, that's right.
It was a comment that Alessia maybe posted, or Alessia Fuga or somebody else. She said, the streets are empty, but behind the doors, there's a lot of, you know, there are people living, there is a community. And I think that's what came out with this pandemic. You were one of the tourists, well, you actually, no, you can't even be called a tourist. You were one of the visitors of Venice, the lovers of Venice, because you always came for a long period, because of course you were one of the people that could afford it, but there's people that could come, you know, people didn't need to come for 1 or 2 days. People should have come for longer. And one other thing that I like about what you did, you always try to go back, always to the same place, and rents always from the same people.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, sorry. There's a bit of a lag when you talk, so when I stop talking, I'll wait for you because we can't hear you otherwise. And I think as what people, at least the people will come back to Venice, that's what they should do, right?
Yes, I think so. But, you know, one of the things that I've observed about Venetians is that they're not always on the same page about what has to be done in their city. And I understand that, because it's a monoculture of tourism. It really is the only business. And everybody's lives are, unless you're an academic or, you know, a permanent kind of civil servant, everybody's livelihood is around, it's around tourism. And many people their livelihood depends on almost mass tourism, you know, and that's unfortunate. I think a lot of tough decisions are going to have to be made by Venetians and their representatives, their public officials, to see what kind of a city they really do want again. And my own feeling is that there's so few Venetians left, actual residents, 50,000 or under now, and they might not have the political power and certainly not the fiscal power. You know, there's not a big tax base anymore. So they're at the mercy of the generosity of the rest of the Veneto to support them in trying to control the numbers, attract, I'm not going to say higher quality tourism, but I do think we can agree that day trippers are not high quality tourists, not here in Dublin, not in Amsterdam, not in Barcelona, but certainly people who, as you say, are prepared to come for a few days, ideally a week or two, if you're very privileged like I am to be able to come for a month and you love the city that much. But people who also will appreciate that, you know, the city needs more than tourism. And I hope there's still a chance for Venice, with the help of people who love the city and politicians, not just national politicians, but international ones too, will realize that your young people need more than just tourism jobs, and they have to develop new industry and develop more you know, the kind of development that Ireland has enjoyed for the last 30 or 40 years, which is high tech and intellectual property, financial services, the things that Venice absolutely thrived on once upon a time. That's the kind of that I think has to happen.
Yeah, the problem is, I think, just looking, I was reading today about what the next phase 2, is going to be for Italy. One of the things is to tackle is transport. How do you get on a bus? The idea is that to get on a bus, you got to be only people sitting. I was having this discussion before with Romena, and I was saying, okay, it's easy to think it like this, fine. But in practice, from one part, you will have the problem that they will have to reduce the buses because there is no public money, because the money is being given to people like me that we're not working at the moment. But on the other side, you have to guarantee for people to be able to go to work. And smart working is not the answer for everybody, because I was pointing out to Romena, yeah, it's easy for us to say smart working if you work in an office. But you work in a factory, you work in a furnace in Murano, okay? And even in a restaurant or in an hotel in Venice. you cannot do smart working. You will need to take your bus. There are not going to be enough buses. How do we solve that? That was one of the things. And my worry was, sorry if I finish, is that the mayor the other day clearly said to everybody that they will have to increase the number of private means of transport.
Do you know, I think this is an issue that everybody's going to be grappling with, Monica, here in Ireland as well. We have to find the formula now, and our government, your own and others, are now starting to discuss, as these numbers of virus cases start to flatten and to reduce, they're all trying to work out a way for each of their countries, and Venice is so different, of course, from everywhere else, but of how to gradually bring workers back, how to self-distance until there's a proper vaccine. And it's going to be very slow. And, you know, this is kind of what I write about and the money aspects of that. And it's going to be extremely expensive for governments to continue to subsidize workers who will not be brought back right away, of course. They still need to live, they still need to eat, and people are running out of their savings if they had savings. So it's going to be the great question of the next month or two. I think that's what, you know, the medical issues, we know what has to be done. So that is being done now, finally, a little late for too many people. And Venice is going to be very peculiar because the structure of its financial structure is all tourism, and tourism is not going to come back for quite a while. And that's why I'm saying I would hope that there is enough, you know, time and effort and genuine leadership in Venice and amongst its lovers all over the world, people who have poured millions and probably billions over, you know, since the Great Flood of 1966. Venice Carol organizations, the great art charities, which have helped restore and conserve Venice. And what Venice needs is kind of a Venice fund, but this time an industrial fund, a manufacturing fund, modern manufacturing. And I really would hope that there's somebody, and I think there are people in Venice who love the city enough, who have enough contacts, who are going to throw themselves into that great effort, because Venice will not recover it certainly won't recover as quickly as other places that have more than just one industry that supports it.
Yeah, my worry is that at the moment, it is very clear. I'm not dreaming this. It's a very clear message. The people that are in charge of the city at the moment, I don't think they really grasped how the whole world has really changed. I think they are under the impression from the messages that come through that we'll be back. We'll soon be back. Yes, we will be back, but we will not. We might be back, but the tourists won't be back, because I doubt that for at least a year, foreign tourists will not be able, at least 6 months, will not be able to come back to Venice.
Going to have to rely on Italian tourists first, who can actually drive to Venice and then hop on a vaporetto.
Wait, we were discussing this with Romena today again. You know, that's the chance we do ourselves. And I was saying, yes, staycation, yeah. The problem is that the majority of Italians, one, they will run out of holidays because they've been, using them during the quarantine, and a lot of them will run out of money. So they're not going to be on holiday. We're not going to go on holiday. We don't have the money to go on holiday.
Sure.
That's going to be another challenge. So, you're going to have a problem of transport. In Venice, transport, all of a sudden they realize that it was the tourists that were paying the transport.
Tourists kept the city going in the wrong sort of way, of course, and it got out of control, and it wasn't controlled. But I do think, I don't think there's much choice in the short term except to rely upon, and it seems very elitist to say this, wealthy Italians who, regardless of what is happening, have some money, and many of them from other places own property in Venice too. Some of the great palazzo and places are owned by Italians. And they're going to have to support Venice, they're going to have to support Florence, they're going to have to support Rome to a certain extent, not really because Rome, but certainly places that are heavily dependent on tourism. and so they should. But they also have this great opportunity, the first time in a generation, to discover Venice without the 30 million day or say 80% of them are day trippers. So, 25 million day trippers. And it's going to take a very interesting campaign and a very interesting appeal, because we both know the days of cheap Ryanair flights coming into Venice all over Europe, and then the cheap flights from North America where you can get a $500 flight to Rome and a quick train up to Venice. Those days are gone for a long time, I think. The airline will be their own problem.
Getting on that, couple of things. First, cheap flights and cruise ships. Two big problems here. How do you see the future of this, financially? Because of course that's what you know.
I think the cruise ships know far more than the airlines that they're in really serious trouble. It will take a lot of convincing to get older people, who are the vast majority of cruise ship customers, to get back on these floating petri dishes of disease.
Yes.
Family members who were involved on the holiday side of cruise ships, and I'm very sorry for their business, but I've never been interested in going on one, but I would never go on one after what's happened. So I think the airlines are a safer bet in terms of helping to bring tourism back to Venice and back to loads of places, but not very quickly. And that's not because they're dangerous to fly, and of course they're not. It's because they're in serious financial trouble.
Of course.
But you know what is a very positive thing, and you and I doing this right now are the perfect example of it. There are ways to see Venice and to go to Venice until we're all able to physically go. And that is, I'm taking, you interviewed her, the wonderful Luisa La Roma of the Venice tour guides, and I'm booked into a couple of virtual tours, and I've convinced a couple of people to go on them with me. It's a way for people like yourselves, and others to try and get your businesses up and running again, charging people for your time and your expertise and that kind of thing. And I'm very hopeful about that. And I also think that, there is an opportunity to develop other Venice services, in particular. They should all have websites now, and the opportunity to, like you, come on live to a customer can get onto them, by Instagram or whatever, and say, hello, I'm really interested in, I have a special birthday or a special anniversary, or I love Venice so much and I can't make my trip this year, but I was hoping to buy something from you. And whether it's a book.
Okay, and considering that, because I know them personally, a lot of these artisans, of course, first, they don't, they don't have the knowledge, as in the technical knowledge to do it. Right now, they do even have the money to do, because, of course, times are hard for everybody. Shouldn't it be this one major commitment from the local authority, and to help these people, to build a network to say, okay, guys, things are tough, but you are the backbone of this city. People will only come back to Venice if they know that there is quality. Let's invest, let's invest, in experiences.
It's happening here. The Irish government.
No, I'm not saying it's not happening everywhere else. I'm saying that's what should be happening here, but.
Absolutely, and I think Artisans in Italy, there might be those kind of opportunities, small loans and grants. Certainly here in Ireland, the government's made a lot of mistakes in the way that they've been handling some of the coronavirus medical issues, but they certainly really have ramped up services and opportunities and guidance and actual capital loans and grants to small businesses, which are also the heartbeat, or the heart that keeps beating the Irish economy, keeping it going. And certainly things like ramping up a website or trying to change your business to suit the new reality, which we're going to be with for a while, is something that you know, artisans, I hope in Venice and Florence and places are going to be able to avail of as well. And again, you know, I know there are organizations for the artisans in Venice. They should be checking to see if these grants and things are available, and if they're not, to really start pushing for them.
And also, and it's not just grants, but also training, and it should be all free. I think this is a time where technology, I was telling somebody, I can't remember who I was talking to, people should stop being afraid of technology. And if one thing that actually I hope people are learning from what's happening and this mass increase on use of social media, something that I know for the last 10 years because it's my job, and a lot of other people like me in social media managers, bloggers, we already knew. But I think people will start realizing the internet is a tool.
That's right. You know,
yeah, it's true, it's been abused, but it can be used in the right way. And if you make it yours, it brings you a lot back. It could even bring you some help economically. And I think people are waking up to this. So maybe it's one positive thing.
Thousands of young Italians actually live and work in Ireland, and they work in the high-tech sector. You know, they were recruited because they are absolutely top young people in this marvelous industry, and Ireland has had a huge demand for tech work. And the difficulty for Venice is that Venice has only had tourism. It hasn't had hubs of bright, young, high-tech people working in smaller and bigger companies and in startups, and, you know, and that is what you absolutely need. So there's another thing that maybe should be started. Try and recruit them back. Try and get them to return to Venice and to the Veneto, to the mainland. It's very hard to find housing in Venice. We know that. It's expensive.
Exactly. That's another thing that should be
and well, that might be helped too, because here, even here in Dublin, hundreds and hundreds of Airbnb apartments are now being rented by ordinary people and families who've been looking for a place to live. So that's another silver lining. So maybe the idea is to try and recruit all those wonderful young Italian people who've been living in Dublin and Cork and places, and their biggest complaint is the rotten weather. So you can certainly bring them back with sunshine, but get them to come back. You know, we've been, I mean, it's not a lot of them, but we've had hundreds of young medical workers, Irish young doctors and nurses and people in Australia and Canada and places who have come back to help the Irish health services. Well, you know, you've needed that too, but Venice and other places, you need other skills that your young people had to take away because there were no jobs in Venice.
I think we really, unfortunately, we don't have it, but we really need a leadership that understand that it is all connected. So housing is connected to people coming back to work. Coming back to work is connected to the fact that you give them help, and it all works out together. And then the moment you have people living and people working, people will want the shops. And when you go back to a proper shop, rather than have all the souvenir tackies kind of thing. And the prices go down as well, because the more if a city is lived properly and not from tourism, then the prices of everything kinds of settles down in a way, or I hope, you know, because I
have written about this before, both on Irish and Italian sites. And I came here in 1980, just as, I mean, we were entering a great recession then. Everybody thought it was very odd that I was immigrating from Canada to Ireland. But even 10 years earlier, in the late 1960s, we had one group of very far-seeing Irish politicians and civil servants. It was probably, I think, one of the greatest governments of its time. And they realized that Ireland had to change. And it had to mean, you know, this backward, agricultural-based, services-based country that had seen millions of its people leave from the mid-1840s. And so they were determined to change that. And it was really a 40, 50-year project, but it has transformed this country. And we appealed not just to, and very luckily we joined the European Union, but we also appealed to the great diaspora of Irish around the world who'd been successful in places like America and Canada and Australia and in Europe as well. And the political and business leaders got together and said, what can we do for Ireland? How can we bring it into the 20th century? And how can we, and so we jumped from a pre-industrial society effectively to an advanced post-industrial society, which we have today. And we're very fortunate. We've done the stupidest things. I mean, in our newfound wealth, and we've discussed this about the crazy property crash in 2000.
Yeah, I think it's everywhere. But there was a key word that you said. You had some very smart politicians that maybe they were a bit, they weren't just looking at now, they were looking at the future, you know, and understood about economy and stuff. Right now, and it's not just Venice, I think the main problem in Italy is that, you know, everybody is concentrated on now and, you know.
But, you know, what is interesting, I think, and it's almost like a pilot project. Venice could be a tiny microcosm example of what Ireland did. Venice is a small place. It doesn't need the kind of, I mean, hundreds of billions probably at this stage of investment and capital that's gone into transforming Ireland, and we're only 5 million people. You know, it's a very small place, and I think there are enough expat Venetians and Italians and people who love Venice because of its history and its culture, and it is the greatest gift to the world, and that it needs to be preserved for the world, but it needs...
But it's always the same problem. If you have the ideas, but on the other side, the person is not listening to the idea. Sai is asking, can Venice support, from the point of view of infrastructure, a high-tech hub? There's so many buildings that are empty. I don't think that's a problem.
I've walked every inch of Venice at this stage. Is the Arsenale, with its fabulous, nearly 1,000-year history of manufacturing and industry and innovation, sits there empty virtually. The Italian Navy has its lovely little hub. People use it for the wonderful Biennale, which is wonderful, of course, and I'm all in favor of maintaining Venice's marvelous cultural presence, but it shouldn't be dominating Venice. And the Arsenale, wouldn't that be a wonderful place for small startup tech companies? Those, you know, those 50...
But isn't just the Arsenale, there's a lot of other buildings, and a lot of other buildings that after this will be left empty because there's not going to be enough tourists. Already one building was closed, like Casanardi, closed down. So it's already happening. The palaces are, you know, Marisa says it's fully occupied. Okay, but that's, you know, that's another story. But the buildings are there. I think the infrastructure is not the problem. I think the problem is the will to do it. What I wanted to ask you, Jill, is, of course, we don't know when you're going to be able to come back. We hope soon.
I am booked for October. There is the Great Craft Fair, which begins in September. It's
cancelled, darling.
You're kidding, too bad. That's what I was coming for.
No, it's been cancelled.
My apartment is booked. My flight is paid for. And
okay.
I'm only coming for a week because I wanted to come to the Great Homo Faber Craft Fair in October, September, and there's also a wonderful, it might be cancelled too, but the Carpaccio exhibit at the Palazzo Ducale, and that's what I was coming for.
I don't know, but definitely not for sure that the big Homo Faber has been cancelled. Unfortunately, we're all upset of that. But what I wanted to know is, when you come back, what's the first thing you're gonna do?
Aside from stand in the window of my beautiful apartment on the Campo di Frari, where I go all the time, it's just an exquisite, and anybody who follows my tweets and things knows that apartment very well now and its views.
And they can write to you and ask you the details. If they want to book you, you give them the details of the owner.
Monica, I will do what I always do, which is I dump all my stuff. I go to the little conad around the corner, and I get essentials for breakfast the next day at least, coffee and juice and you know, butter in my case, and eggs. And then I go for a walk, and I walk the city for hours until it gets too dark. And what I'm so proud of as a Venetian visitor, I just let my tired legs just take me home. They kind of know where to go.
Last year you did that. Last time in December you did plenty of it. I remember receiving loads of messages like, I'm tired today. Really tired.
1,000 steps, you know, things like that, which is unheard of. 16,000 steps one day. I had to drag myself up the 2 flights of stairs into my little apartment. But Monica, you and I will meet, and I'll go to the little Cicchetti place at San Tomás, at Campo Santo. And, you know, I'll stand on the Accademia Bridge and just look at that view of the Salute. I do what I always do. And I will visit my friends, the artisans, and I'll visit the, you know, one of the things people know, because I always go in a cold time of year, March or December now. And I have 2 pink coats. And while are terribly stylish, everybody in the winter wears blue, black, or gray. And I am the signora in the pink coat, and shopkeepers actually remember me now. Oh, you're the Irish signora in the pink coat. So I'm so looking forward to seeing them. I hope they're still there. I hope.
Yes. Yeah, that is my biggest worry, because every day I'm talking to somebody and they are like, and you know, I know quite a lot. And every day I hear somebody say, I don't know if I'm going to be able to open again. They're just waiting. Everybody's just hanging there. I know they want to, you know, it's not like they're giving up, but I can hear in the voice is getting up, because the dates keeps moving. It's not like it's a firm day. You get to the date and we said, oh, well, another couple of weeks. We totally understand that it needs to be done. But, you know, when you don't work and you have wages to pay and you have rent to pay, it's a bit hard. I mean, the other day I was talking to my friends, the one with the restaurants in Burano, and he was saying to me, I hate to say this, but I hope they're going to stay, you know, that they're going to keep us closed, even if it means 3 months. But then that's it, he said. You know, I can deal with it if I know that's the end of it. What he said I cannot deal with is this keep changing the date and not knowing if when it will be the end of it.
Well, our shopkeepers and people are having those conversations here too. And one of them is that even if the restrictions are lifted, now, as you know, having visited here last year, we have a very vibrant pub culture. It's part of psyche. Thank God they all serve food now. They didn't when I first came here, and they were smoky, horrible places. They're great now. But it's very difficult to do social distancing in a pub. Restaurants, maybe you can get away with it. But even if somehow they worked it out, people are saying, you know, I would love to have my customers come back, even if in a pub that could take easily 50 or 60 people, even if only 20 or 30 of them were there. But I can't pay my bills if I only have 20 or 30 people in my pub.
How do you select who you let in? You're gonna lose customers, because if your regulars are 50 or 60, and how do you select who comes in, who doesn't come in? It's just crazy. I mean, we were talking about the other day with somebody, they were saying, okay, all these ideas of putting, you know, plastic glass between people and stuff. And then you get up and you go hand in hand and you kiss each other. You know, it just doesn't, I don't know. Or at the seaside, they were saying now they want to put the plexiglass at the sea. And one of the first comments my son said, yeah, what about when you all go in the water together? Well, we're going to have plexiglass in the water. It just is crazy, really, really crazy. But
why this whole discussion, which really is going to intensify over the next month or two for sure, about how do we bring our economies back? How do we get, you know, people working again? Is going to have to take into account that it might be difficult to do unless there is this herd immunity situation possibly, and a better understanding of the virus, and also a pretty good idea that there are retroviral you know, medicines that will stop so many people dying. What we need is confidence before we can really get our communities and our, especially hospitality industries and tourism back. Because no matter how confident the Swedes or the Danes are, you know, about the actions that they've taken, which have allowed some opening now. I gather I have a brother-in-law who lives in Denmark, and he's saying, you know, even as this happens, schools are open. A lot of parents are not letting their children back. The cafes in Sweden are open, and quite a few restaurants, but a lot of them are shutting down because they're not getting enough business. So it's going to be about confidence. And thank God the horrible cruise ships, there isn't going to be any confidence because their product is aimed at older people who are at risk most.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. What's the situation right now in Ireland? Did your government go to the really heavy steps that we done in Italy, as in like really saying to people, not suggesting, but really not allowing people to do things, or did they do like in England where they suggested they shouldn't?
We're somewhere in between. We've actually given Gardaí, who are our police, our national police, they have the right now to arrest and charge people who, you know, absolutely flout what are rules about how far you can go. Now, unlike poor Italy, where you can't really go outside very much at all, or 200 meters.
Oh, a bit more now. No, it was. Now we can a little bit more.
Our restriction was 2 kilometers, but you had to be... But that was for exercise, to take your dog or your family for a walk down to a park within 2 kilometers of where you live. It wasn't to get in your car and drive 2 kilometers and have exercise. But a lot of people have been doing that, of course. But
it's not just the Italian, but government rule, find a way out then.
You know what our weather is like here. So the moment it gets over 15 degrees and there's some sunshine, the entire country strips off and tries to go to the beach or the park. Italians would still be wearing fur coats and scarves, but the Irish, exactly, but the Irish, you know, 15 degrees, oh my God, oh, mother of God, it's so hot, is the kind of... So it's going to be and the weather is getting nicer. So it looks like they'll have to probably, you know, remind people again, we have not raised the limits to your social interaction yet. We still have too high a death rate and too many cases still coming, you know, 500-600 cases sometimes a day are still happening here.
Mainly in Dublin or even in the countryside?
The virus is mostly affecting the east, the most cases. And unfortunately, I said very early on, I think the government has done very well in terms of its fiscal and financial response to what's happened. But nobody anticipated what was happening and what was going to happen in our nursing homes. And at least half of all the deaths and cases have involved nursing homes. And there are only 25,000 elderly people in nursing homes. And that is a tragedy. And they're finally, you know, acting to try and damp it down there. But it's very difficult. So don't think, you know, people, the Irish, we've been really pretty good about staying home. And I think part of that was also because they moved very quickly to assure people that they weren't going to starve to death, that you may have lost your job, but you will get benefits immediately. And the benefits are a flat amount. So anybody who's lost their job due to the virus received a flat 350 euros a week. And within a week or two, that money was in your bank account. So even people with part-time jobs, you know, and who weren't earning very much, we only, a tenner an hour is the minimum wage here. And the hospitality industry is heavily dependent on part-time workers. Well, people who were only earning 200 a week are now getting 350 into their hands. So they didn't feel compelled to go and work and find a job, even though they could be infecting others. They felt comfortable enough and there's been rent freezes and there will be no evictions for the court for the duration of the great crisis. And so they did make some very good judgments that way. The problem is unwinding all of that too, because the Irish national debt will go up by 20 billion, which in our country, another 10%.
We're all going to be in the same situation though, are we? It's not just, it's going to be, I don't know, a few countries and everybody be in a better shape. We're going to be there, so more or less, who more or less, but I think the problem of
That's right. That's right. And I think what's also going to be...
Sorry, you speak. Go.
Sorry, I was going to say, I think what's really going to be interesting is how we handle that as societies too.
Mm.
You know, there's great inequality between people who have lots of assets, which were very deeply achieved because this is how central banks around the world have been supporting, you know, the great debt accumulation. Just throw more rich people and hope that they spend it, and they've had access to that money. I'm not sure that model can last. I think big corporations that have hundreds of billions of dollars and euros sitting in their bank accounts are going to find that maybe they're going to have to make larger contributions. I think we're going to see, you know, a big change in the way we work, and that's not such a bad thing. A lovely neighbor of mine, a young man with 3 small children, and he's an accountant, and he was sent home very quickly to work, and fortunately he was able to find a spot in his house, even though his children are being homeschooled, to do his job. And I was chatting to him across the wall in our back gardens. He was saying he really likes working from home. He doesn't have to face the traffic. He's saving money on buses.
Oh my God, I saved so much money in petrol. Oh gosh.
You know, suits and shirts, and he's getting as much work done as he did before. He likes the flexibility of it. His job means that he can do that. Not everybody, of course, can. But there's going to be huge savings as well as great expense that's going to have to be reckoned with. And I think that's really interesting. You know, people are going to be able to adjust their lives, hopefully adjust their budgets too, for a new normal that we're going to have to live with. Yeah.
Now, every time I always ask my guests to have something handmade. Have you got something handmade from an artisan? Yeah, well, listen, woman, you got so much stuff from handmade from
I remember you asking somebody else. Now, listen, if you can see it, this is a very
that's beautiful.
That is by an Irish artisan, jeweler called Anne Tyrrell. I love her work. Whoops, whoa.
Yep. You caught it in time. Yeah.
My machine went. However, I'm wearing a dark color, so I didn't put it on, but look what was going on.
Oh, right, okay. Snapper.
Now, I know it's black, but the wonderful Imperatrice Marisa Convento made this for me, a black coral. This is her signature piece, of course, that she's famous for. And I absolutely love it. I was going to wear it, but it wouldn't have shown up.
And tell me, sorry, I want you to know about the black artisan as well, though.
About the what?
The Irish artisan.
Oh, yes. Her name, I don't know if you can read that. No, you can't. Her name is backwards. It's backwards. Her name is Anne Tyrrell. And she does have a website, and she makes the most beautiful necklaces and earrings. And these are black pearls with a beautiful silver piece in the center of it.
Wow.
It is one of my most favorite pieces, and I have bought quite a few pieces from her. I have 2 absolutely favorite Irish jewelers, and one of them is Anne, and the other is a guy called Simon Phelan, who I think I brought you into his shop.
Yes,
you met him, and his work is absolutely superb. So, you know, if I can pass on any last message, it really is for.
Turn the camera a little bit because you've got the sun. You disappeared. You disappeared in the sun. Turn your car down.
Let me see if I can. Here.
Okay.
Here I am. I'm going to move away.
Okay. Good.
So if I have a message to anybody friends who love Venice and who love Dublin, Italian friends who love Dublin, is, you know, try and help whoever you can get through this, whether it's the wonderful tour guides like yourselves who are offering online services, whether it's the artisans who have websites, and I hope they even piggyback on other friends' websites. And, you know, be sure to, I mean, this could go on for a long time. We still have people who we want to buy little presents for or gifts.
Yes.
You know, and I happen to love handmade jewelry. But I also, by the way, I also have here my other Venetian treasures include this.
By the way, where were you? In your living room or in the newly painted
sitting room? No, this is my office.
Oh, this is Arianna. I'm going to have Arianna talking to me on. Be talking to Arianna.
Well, there you go. That is one of my precious things that I brought back from Venice. And I have here, I don't know if you can see it. Let me see. Here we are. A very beautiful perfume bottle, which I also collect Venetian perfume bottles, modern ones, unfortunately not the old ones. So again, all of these come from wonderful artisans, and they need to be supported or they won't be there. They won't be there the next time you come. I wish I could order cicchetti. You know, I wish I could. I
know. I'm in the same situation, woman. I live 15 kilometers and I can get any cicchetti. Somebody said to me the other day, make them, and they don't realize it yet. Make them. Yeah, I'll end up eating them all. So no, can't do that. That's something I have to wait as well, like everybody else. Jill, I can say, all I can say is I hope October is the date.
I hope so.
You know, and I just hope things will get better for everybody. A huge hug to you, to your husband, to your lovely dog.
The dog, yeah, Jeff. She appears in a lot of my Twitter pictures, so you can go back and take a look at her there.
Going around, okay. I bet she's the only one happy in the family because she has you home all the time now, does she?
And getting extra walks. In fact, I sometimes think the poor dog is looking at us saying, no, 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 go away. I don't need another walk. Go away, go away.
She's done something. I got to say, I was checking Luna before I put my hand in her collar like this, and I realized, oh, wow, she's lost weight because all of a sudden I'm able to go in. Oh, wow, that's good. That's it. And I'm not taking her. My son is taking her, but obviously he needs to get out. So he lets her run and everything before I could. And I said, yeah, she's a happy one now. Jill, thank you so much. It was so nice talking to you. I'm so happy you worked it out how to do it. You are.
I know. How amazing is that? Thank you for this series of interviews. It's been such a pleasure to meet new and old friends that you've been interviewing. So thank you, Monica.
It's okay. Tanya is saying hello as well. I just saw her saying hi. Okay. Speak to you soon, and I'll see you soon too. Ciao, ciao, Jill.
Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao.